Fairest of All, A Tale of the Wicked Queen by Serena Valentino. Copyright 2009, Disney Enterprises Incorporated, published by Disney Press. Chapter 18, Dream Sickness. Show me Snow White. Snow White was running in the dark forest, full of fear and anguish. She was panic-stricken, alone, and heading back to the castle. Back to her stepmother, who would surely have the huntsman punished for attempting to hurt her, and weaving lies that she plotted her own daughter's death. Foolish girl! The force came alive. It was visceral and dangerous. It wanted Snow White's life. The queen's rage permeated the trees, bringing their leafless limbs to life. As if they were hands, the tree branches scratched and grabbed at Snow, entrapping her, pinning her to the ground. They wrapped themselves around her neck, choking her, and clawing at her chest for her heart. The forest would do what the huntsman could not. Snow White's eyes filled with terror. She cried out, "Mama, please help me!" The queen's heart melted in that moment. The trees released Snow White from their clutches. The girl ran deep into the forest, where the trees obscured the sky completely. She was in pure darkness, surrounded by glowing eyes peering at her menacingly. She was alone in fear, and she ran, not knowing if the path would take her to safety or to death. The queen's magic could not go where Snow wandered. She escaped out of the forest and out of the queen's view. The queen jolted awake. She felt a freezing chill and desired nothing but the warm comfort of her bed. She stayed there for days, conjuring only the energy to make a daily visit to the magic mirror, an occasional walk to the window to make sure Snow White was scrubbing away at the castle and avoiding the meddlesome prince. Even from afar, she noticed how beautiful Snow had become, not only in outward appearance, but like her father, in her pure heart. It would not be long before... No! The queen could not permit herself to think it. She felt alone, forsaken by her husband, and now Snow was away from her as well. No, that was a dream, or was it? Everything in her life seemed to be tangled up now. Dreams, reality, fantasy, and nightmare. She felt that she had become something other than human, something completely alien to herself. She wondered if her father had lived his days in such a state. These days she saw much of him within herself. Late one night, she woke with her nightdress soaked in sweat. She felt weak and every part of her ached. She got up and poured some water into her watering bowl to cool herself when she noticed something upon the floor. It was blood, pools of it, mingled with footprints, leading from the queen's bedside out of her chamber door. The queen took a torch for light and followed the blood trail, out the castle and into the forest. The forest was blackened, as if ravaged by fire. There was no light from the moon or stars. It was a dead place, ruined by her jealousy and hate. The only source of light was the torch she carried. The bloody trail finally ended. A heart was clasped within the claw-like branches of a dead tree, looking like a strange bleeding fruit, blood glistening on the branch in the torchlight. The queen just stood there, feeling empty and alone, terror gripping her own heart. "Mama?" The queen turned with a start. Standing there was Snow, a child once more, her face whiter than death, her eyes black holes, her white dress covered in blood. "Mama, can I please have my heart back?" The queen screamed. What had she done? "Your Majesty, please wake up. You're having a nightmare," Tilly insisted. "My little girl needs me. She came here last night because she needs me. The forest took her heart." Her chambermaid just looked at her, bewildered. "No, my queen. Snow White is in the courtyard. She's fine." "But the blood on the floor. It's there, see?" "You must have broken something in the night and stepped in the glass, Majesty. You've been ill." "No, it's Snow White's blood. She came here in the night, I swear." "Look at your feet, Majesty. They're filthy and bleeding. You're sick. Please go back to sleep. You need your rest." "Leave me alone, you idiotic wench." "But, Your Majesty, I should tend to your—" "I said leave!" The queen stared at the blood and glass on her chamber floor. Snow had come to her in the night. She knew it. Her little girl was lost and alone, searching for her heart. Although she had been doing little more than sleeping these past few days, she passed out from exhaustion once more. "You must kill Snow White if you want to survive, if you desire your beauty back. She would rather rid herself of the mirror and let herself die. If Snow White lives, it will be slow and painful, daughter. You would linger unto death for many years, your soul rotting away within you. withering your body to a husk. Everyone will look upon you with pity and disgust. You will wish for death and feel no release even after they have buried you deep within the ground. The magic of the mirror, the spells of the sisters will keep you alive even in the darkness. You will suffer for death, feel the need for it, want to seek it out, but your body will not be able to enforce your will. You will be trapped within yourself, alone and in agony. Why are you doing this? I've hated you from the day you came into this world. All of this was lies then. Why? Revenge for your mother's death, for the breaking of my soul. The queen awoke again, remembering her father's words. From her dream, she remembered saying similar words to Verona about the loss of her husband. She was feverish and ill, and her mind wasn't her own. Why were these thoughts invading her? She fought against them, but couldn't help but feel that she had wasted her life for vain wishes and a love her father never had for her. And now she was going to be forced to kill her daughter. No, that was a dream. The mirror had no hold over her. Her mind was muddled. She couldn't determine reality from nightmares, and found that she was unable to keep herself awake, instead falling back into her feverish dreamscape. She was looking into her mirror. I am like you, Father. I've forsaken my daughter. I despise her beauty. You have always been like me. A part of me lives within you. You share my blood. We are bound by that, and by the magic of the mirror. Part of my soul is in you.
We own your soul, the sisters' voices came. If your soul is in her, she is ours as well, just as your wife was before we took her.
No one owns me, the queen shouted. The sisters laughed, then faded away. The queen stumbled out of her chamber, feeling numb, and walked the familiar path she and Snow used to wander when Snow was still a little girl. Time had completely gotten away from her, and she ended up walking much farther than she'd intended. She was in the dead wood again. Everything was blackened, and it reeked of sulfur. She had done this. Her hate and fear not only ruined this forest, but the eternity of her life. Everything was lost to her now. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw something green and red in the black emptiness. It was a bright, shiny apple, hanging from a tree in this dead wood. She wondered how she hadn't noticed it right away. It looked remarkable and uncanny among the dead trees. Something about it gave her hope. She took the brilliant apple from the dead tree, put it into the folds of her simple dress, and pulled her shawl over her head, and made her way to a tiny cottage deep within the woods. As the queen woke from her feverish dream, Tilly was putting a cool cloth on her forehead. I need something to eat. An apple, the queen muttered through parched lips. Tilly took the cloth from the queen's forehead and placed it in a bowl of cool rose water. You've been dreaming, my queen. And she went on. Snow is outside and would like to see you. The queen almost turned her away, but then thought better of it. Yes, ask her to come in. Tilly called to the attendant by the door, and Snow White entered the room. She was so beautiful. The sun seemed to follow her wherever she went. The rags she wore only accentuated her beauty by contrasting it with the raggedness. She was so young, so sweet, so fair. I'm sorry you've been ill, Mother. Is there anything I can do for you? There is. Please, won't you please find me an apple? The reddest and shiniest you can find, the queen asked. As Tilly continued to wipe down her forehead, Snow looked to the chambermaid, who returned her weary look. Of course, Mother. I'll pick you an apple if you'd like, Snow White said. Thank you, my little bird, replied the queen, drifting in and out of her dream state. The queen came to a large moss-covered tree, where she knew a sleep-inducing root would grow, because it thrived in dark and dampness. Feeling icy and wicked, she dug in the earth. The root was there, as she had thought. She took out her little dagger and cut the root open. Its oil spilled out all over her hands, reminding her of blood. She felt evil, a chill coming over her. What had caused her to commit such foul acts? She rubbed the oily substance from the root onto the apple. It would make Snow sleep, a death-like sleep. Perhaps the queen should take a bite of the apple too, and then she could be with her daughter, without fear of hurting her. She ventured through the forest and came to a clearing in the woods. And there were gathered the sisters.
So, you have discovered the poison apple, have you? Then the sisters took the queen by her arms and dragged her to the far end of the clearing. The magic mirror was there, and Lucinda held the queen in front of it, while Martha and Ruby stood alongside gawking at the queen's reflection. Her face, her beautiful face, melted into a wrinkled old mess, lined with marks of age and dotted with warts. She could smell her own breath, and it was foul, befitting her rotting teeth. She was a hag, an old, vile, disgusting witch. The sisters laughed as the queen tore away from them. It was difficult for her to run, since her back was now hunched in this new body. She ran and ran through the forest as fast as her legs would carry her, and then she came to a cottage. Snow was there, but she would not recognize her now. The girl, a woman now, was so beautiful. But something was wrong. She didn't seem her vibrant self. Something within her had changed. In that moment, the queen understood. She'd taken her heart. Not physically. No, she still lived. But the queen had taken her daughter's spirit when she'd forsaken her. Snow was talking to stray animals. She seemed to have many of them about the cottage and within. She wondered if the ordeal had made Snow's mind unsound. The thought crushed her heart. The queen wondered if even in this state, looking like an old hag, and Snow White delirious with fear and grief, the girl might recognize her. Something in Snow's eyes told her she did. But it wasn't possible. Holding a little bird in her hand, Snow smiled at the old woman with that little smile of hers. She looked like a child again. A beautiful child. A beautiful woman. Surely more beautiful than the queen. "Hello, my dear. How are you today?" Snow White just stood there, staring at her, as if mesmerized. "I have a gift for you, my sweet," said the queen, handing the apple to her daughter. Snow looked into her mother's eyes as she took the apple. Snow White took a bite, almost absent-mindedly, and then quickly fell to the ground, the apple still in her hand. And just before she closed her eyes, she said, "But my dream has already come true, Mama. You came for me, as I knew you would. I love you." The queen bent down and kissed her daughter and whispered in her ear, "Oh, I love you too, my little bird. I love you so much."
Thank you so much for listening. Remember, like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to keep up to date on all the new magic. Have a magical day.